Welcome to our quick tip, Find the Missing Link. In this video, we're going to look at how to use PowerQuery with no necessary prior knowledge to connect data together so as to find the matching pieces and identify any missing information. Think about finding unpaid invoices, uncashed checks, or, in our scenario here, the list of people who have not RSVP'd to an event. I have a nice long list of over 400 invitations that have been sent out. Managing this list and the responses would be the definition of agony, so let's look at an easy way to do it. Let's start by looking at the obvious approach. You'd add the RSVP or +1 information next to each name and address, and as you receive the responses from the invitees, you'd search through your list and update that status directly within the table. Once you do that 20 or 30 times, you'll probably want to pull your hair out. Now imagine doing it 400 times. Now, don't cry. We are going to do it an easier way. The first thing we need to do is some setup. I'm going to turn this information into a table by selecting it, going to Insert along the ribbon and clicking on Table. Once I do this, on the Table Design tab, I can give it an informational name called Invitations. This table will represent the list of invitations that we've sent out. I'm going to create a new table next to it where I'll have name, RSVP, and +1 as a separate group of cells. I'm going to select these headers, select an extra row, and then I'll turn it into a table using the Insert Table command again. I'm going to name this table as Responses. These tables will serve as the backbone for our little mini database. Rather than searching for and updating each invitation with the response details, I'm going to input the response details separately into this list. While this is still a lot of work, it's much easier than searching for each name in the list before adding the details. I've gotten about 30 responses so far, so let's see how we can use PowerQuery to merge these two queries together so that each invitation is matched to a response. To do this, we need to connect the tables to PowerQuery. I'll go into the Data ribbon and click on From Table Range. Once it loads, I can click on the Close and Load dropdown, choose Close and Load To, and then click on Only Create Connection and press OK. I'm going to do this once for each of my tables. This will make our information accessible to PowerQuery, and it will also open up the Queries and Connections panel to the right. We're going to build off of the Invitations table, so I'll right-click on it and choose Reference. This will reopen the query editor. I want 3 different outputs: the RSVP'd yeses and the RSVP'd nos, and then a list of no responses. To start, I'll use the Merge Query command along the top. This will open a new window. Within this window, I can see the invitations at the top. In the middle, I'm going to select the Responses table so I can connect the components together. I need to tell them how to talk to each other, so the name from the invitations and the name from the responses should match. Clicking on each of the columns to highlight them will do this. And at the bottom, I'll have an estimate that says 34 of 433 rows have matches. So for now, I'm going to skip over the join kind and go straight into the results by pressing OK. This will add a new Responses column with an odd-looking button to the table. Clicking on that button will give us access to the Expand command, where I can select just RSVP and +1, and then remove the original column name before pressing OK. Over to the right, I'll rename this query so that it's more informational. We have our full list of invitations here with each of the RSVPs we've received. Any place where there's a null is where we haven't received a response. We've taught PowerQuery to map our responses directly to the invitations, so let's create some reports to understand what we have. I'll open the queries list on the left, and I'm going to right-click this query and choose Reference. These references make sure that any changes at any point of the query tree filter throughout all of the queries. This will contain only yes RSVPs, so I'll name the query that, and once it's named, I'll click on the RSVP field and select only yes. I'm going to go through this process once again for no, giving the query a name, using the drop-down, selecting only no, and voila! I now have 2 reports to tell me who has RSVP'd yes versus those who have RSVP'd no. I'm going to click on the standard Close and Load button to send these reports to Excel. After about 4 minutes, we've been able to build a pair of reports that will update whenever we add new responses to our table to tell us if someone has RSVP'd yes or no. But one problem remains: who hasn't sent a response at all? Rather than searching strictly for null values, I'm going to right-click our Invitations with Responses query and duplicate it. Here I'm going to go to the Merge step and edit it by clicking on the gear. And it's time to look at our join type. The join type tells the merge how to handle the matching process. For this scenario, I want to pull the matches where there is not a matching response in the second table for the first table. This is called a left anti-join. The result of this merge is to remove any RSVPs and leave us with only those invitations that do not have a response. Now I'm going to right-click this query and duplicate it so we can create one extra report. This report will look for responses that we received that we do not have a corresponding invitation for. What if I have a typo when I'm inputting one of my responses, or I get a response from someone that I didn't invite? Well, that's what this report will help us identify. The modification here is to change our left anti-join to a right anti-join and press OK. I happen to know that there won't be any improper responses in our table yet, so this report will show up as blank. I'm going to adjust it a bit since it is a different view by eliminating some columns and renaming a few. But once I'm done with that, I'm going to hit close and load and push these results out to Excel. This gives us 4 different useful reports to refresh whenever we add new responses to our RSVP list. To see how effective this is and how our logic holds up, let's go add some new responses and see what happens. Let's start by testing the improper response report. Over where our data is, I'll go to the end and add a new entry. This entry will be for this person does not exist, but they said they'd be here. Great. Now, on our report, I'll go to the Data ribbon tab and choose Refresh All. After a brief computation, our report will update and tell us that this person does not exist has responded, but he shouldn't have. So now let's go and update that data entry point by replacing it with a name that should be there. Going back to our primary data input, I'll change the entry to Tricia Collier, someone who is supposed to respond, and then I'm going to add 2 new entries, one for Explainly and one for someone else, neither of whom were invited to this party. Instead of going directly to the reports, I can hit the Refresh All command and then look at my query summaries along the right side pane to get some quick details. Each report will tell me how many rows were loaded so I can see that I have 2 improper responses, 398 invitations sent without a response, 6 responses that say no, and 29 responses that say yes out of a total of 433 invitations. I can click on any one of these reports to take me directly to the report for the details. PowerQuery has many functions that are applicable across different use cases. I consider the merge command to be among the most useful, as it can be hugely helpful for nearly any Excel user, as it can replicate VLOOKUP functions incredibly well. Explainly offers both introductory and advanced courses for PowerQuery if you'd like to learn more. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tip. Thank you for joining me.